So the Dallas Mavericks come into the season with a lot of championship expectations, a lot riding on Luka and Kyrie Irving to break through and finally get Dallas a championship. We saw last year there were some struggles early on. Kyrie had his injuries. We saw Derek Lively deal with some injuries, and it took them some time to build chemistry and gel. We saw at the trade deadline, they picked up PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. At first, you're like, I don't know about these moves, but it turned out to be some great acquisitions. When we got closer to the playoffs, Dallas got healthy, and they took off after they reached the 5th seed. We saw in the first round, they dispatched the Clippers. We saw in the second round, it was a tough series against OKC. They made it really hard for Luka to score. SGA was pretty good in that series, but we had guys like PJ Washington step up. We had guys like Derrick Jones step up. Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively were killing him on the glass and on rim protection. So Dallas defensively looked great. Luka and Kyrie had their moments. We also saw in the Minnesota series that Luka had his phenomenal shot in Game 2 and that step-back three-point shot against Rudy Gobert to give Dallas the win. We saw them just handle Minnesota in Game 5. Yes, the first 4 games were really close at the end, but we saw those clutch moments from Kyrie and Luka. And then we get to the NBA Finals, and there were some things that got exposed, like PJ Washington unable to hit shots outside the corner 3. Boston took that away. The pick-and-roll lob dunks, they weren't there for Dallas. So you go into the offseason, you look at the roster, and you ask yourself, how can we improve things? How can we make this team better? Well, the first thing they did was they replaced Derrick Jones Jr. with Najee Marshall because Derrick Jones Jr. wanted more money, and that's understandable. He was unbelievable for the Dallas Mavericks. Then they picked up Quentin Grimes, which I think is a good move, especially defensively. If his offense comes back, great, but his defense would be solid for Dallas. And then, of course, they signed Klay Thompson, which I think is a very great move for their bench. Also, it should help their offense and help with spacing out there, especially if PJ Washington isn't shooting consistently. If he doesn't get better at above the break threes, you can bring in Klay for those minutes. And also, he's a good off-ball guy. He can move off the ball, get his shots. He doesn't need the ball all the time to be effective on offense. Defensively, he might not be as good, but he's going to bring scoring power and also open up more lanes for Kyrie and Luka to operate. You also have to think about the development of Derek Lively. How much of a leap is he going to take this year with his offense? Is he going to have a consistent post game? Is he going to have a consistent mid-range game? These are things that are going to be answered this season for Derek Lively. We know defensively, Derek Lively is going to be elite. His rim protection is great. He can rebound the basketball, and he just has awesome energy for the Mavericks. I did see Lively in the offseason work on his three-point drills, but again, even if he can't shoot the three ball really well, as long as he's a threat on offense outside of lob dunks and layups and putback slams, he's going to be a problem and open up more spacing for Luka and Kyrie. So that's another question that is going to be answered, and we'll see how Lively improves this season. You also signed Spencer Dinwiddie. He was on that 2022 Mavericks team that made the Western Conference Finals, so another ball handler. Another guy who can help take pressure off a guy like Jaden Hardy, who can be a combo guard, and Spencer Dinwiddie can play point guard. So you got different things that you can experiment on as well. I like the depth here. You still have Powell, you still have Maxi Kleber. So for Jason Kidd, he's just got to figure out who are his 8 guys going into the playoffs? Who can he trust? And I would do some experimentation. It doesn't hurt. I know this team is really good. I expect them to be a top 2 seed in the West, but even if that doesn't happen, because there is a realistic chance that they deal with injuries with Kyrie, because Kyrie isn't very durable. So it's more important to get him ready for the NBA playoffs. So if Dallas finishes 4th in the West, I'm not worried about that because I think they're better than Minnesota. I think they're better than the Denver Nuggets. I think they're better than Memphis. They're better than the Clippers. They're better than all these teams outside of OKC. That's their only competition. When I look at the West, all I see as contenders is OKC and Dallas. Now, people might not like that because, oh, what about Jokic? Denver has lost depth. They're relying on guys who are going to get new experiences, like Christian Brown is going to get a bigger role. I don't know if they're ready to make that leap yet. And you lost Caldwell Pope, and now you're relying more on Jamal Murray and Jokic. They are an injury away from being an 8th seed. That's how much depth they've lost. So when I look at Dallas, I'm like, they have all these pieces. All they got to figure out is how it meshes together. You also can't forget that Dallas can move some of these pieces. Maybe they don't fit well together. Like maybe Jaden Hardy needs to go, or Grimes, or Dwight Powell, or Maxi Kleber. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, they have depth, and they just got to shrink it down to 8 guys they can trust in the playoffs. So if they need to make another trade during the trade deadline, they can move off some of these pieces. And going back to where they're going to finish seeding-wise, it really just comes down to their health. So if they're struggling out the gates because Lively's hurt or Kyrie's doing something or Luka, I'm not concerned because this team is built for the playoffs. Do I think this is a top 2 team in the Western Conference? Yes, there's no doubt about it. But again, it really just comes down to their health. That's my biggest question mark. Now, when it comes to MVP, Luka Doncic is going to win it, in my opinion. I know Jokic has his MVPs. I know Embiid is going to maybe go for, he might just take more games off because he's going to prepare for the playoffs. I don't think Jason Tatum's going to win it because I think Boston's so stacked. And I love my Celtics. But to be objective here, I think this is Luka's year to finally win the MVP. My only concern with Dallas is having more variety with their offense. We saw in the NBA Finals that they relied a lot on lob dunks and above the break threes. And PJ Washington wasn't good at that. Neither was Derrick Jones. So Boston said, you know what? We're going to take away the corner threes and we'll let Luka play isolation basketball. So if I'm Dallas, don't fall for that trap. Find ways to make your offense more explosive and more unpredictable and more fluid. So a guy like Klay Thompson is perfect for Dallas because he plays well off the ball. Run sets for Klay Thompson so he can get his touches. Also, find ways to get Derek Lively involved more often, outside of just lob dunks and layups. Make sure you improve the offense because if it goes to another level, Dallas has a really good chance at winning the championship. But if the offense is stagnant, if it's playing constant isolation basketball when you should be moving the ball so you can get more offense and better looks, then it's going to be problematic. The other question I have for Dallas is, what does their rotation look like come playoff time? Because they have all this depth, and that's really awesome. They're going to get a lot of minutes during the regular season. The other question I have for the Dallas Mavericks is, what does their rotation look like come playoff time? Jason Kidd has to figure this out. Obviously, they're going to get a lot of playing time during the regular season because you want to make sure you're resting Kyrie and Luka for the playoffs. But you got to figure out who you can trust. And also, do you trade any of them? Because they're not all going to be playing in the playoffs. And if you have an opportunity to upgrade your bench or add a piece that could put you over the top against Boston, you make that move. So Dallas is in a good spot here. I'm not going to lie. They got a lot of interesting pieces. They got a lot to figure out, but that's a good problem to have. When you have depth, when you have players who can come in and add value to the roster, that is a good thing to have. It's just really about putting the puzzle together. They've got pieces here. They improve the roster. It's just really about putting it all together. And if they stay healthy and can gel all season long, they are going to be a tough outcome playoff time. I think we're heading for a collision course between OKC and Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. That's my prediction. But yeah, we'll see how Dallas plays this season. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your expectations for the Dallas Mavericks this season. Do you think they're going to win the championship? Do you think they'll end up losing the finals again or just not making it at all? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.